Let me tell you something you probably won't believe. $500 million on the line, 3 days left, a swarm of the world's brightest experts scrambling, and it wasn't any of them who cracked the code. No, the future of Mercer Tech, and maybe artificial intelligence itself, was changed forever by a black woman in a faded janitor's uniform, mop in hand, whose only real plan that night was to finish her shift and get home to her little girl. And while everyone thought no one was watching, Simon Walker, the famously cold CEO who made Wall Street nervous just by blinking, saw it all. What he did next? Well, you'd never see it coming. Simon Walker was the kind of man who could silence $100 million room with a look. That day, he stood in the glass-walled war room of Mercer Tech, staring at a digital display flickering with chaos. The Vanguard project, their supposed breakthrough, had become a ticking bomb. Millions already burned through, top minds flown in at eye-watering rates, and the whole company teetering on the edge. Simon's footsteps on the marble floor turned every head. A hush fell over the expensive suits and Ivy League egos. In a voice sharp as frostbite, he said, "I paid you millions for this, and all you can show me is a broken mess?" Nobody answered. Jason Hartley, the lead engineer, tried not to sweat through his suit. Simon's glare felt like a loaded gun. "We have 3 days to save this contract. If we fail, Mercer Tech loses everything, and believe me, you'll be lucky to find janitorial work after this." With that, he slammed the door, leaving desperation hanging in the air. Out in the hallway, nobody paid much attention to the small woman pushing a cleaning cart, Rachel Brooks. She'd learned long ago to keep her head down, especially at Mercer Tech, where being seen meant being scrutinized, and scrutiny never ended well for folks like her. But as Rachel passed that war room, her eyes flicked up. Just a second, barely enough to register the mess of numbers and symbols glowing on the digital board. Something didn't sit right. But hey, she told herself, Rachel, that's not your problem. You're here to clean up after the geniuses, not school them. Still, that one look gnawed at her all night. She scrubbed coffee stains and wiped screens, her mind tracing back to the woman she once was, an MIT standout in artificial intelligence, on the edge of something big until life and loss shoved her off the path. Now her world was her 6-year-old daughter, Sophia, and a job that paid the bills if not the dreams. Most nights, Rachel worked unseen, her sharp mind buried beneath that uniform. She'd lost the right to dream big, or so she believed, until tonight, when the memory of her late husband Michael's words haunted her. Rage, the world needs people who see what others miss. It was 3 a.m. when Rachel found herself outside that conference room again, staring at the whiteboard through the glass. Don't do it, she told herself. You don't belong in that fight. But the urge was stronger than fear. She slipped inside, heart pounding, and studied the chaos on the board, 100 equations, all leading nowhere. Then, at the bottom corner, she spotted it. A tiny error, the kind of mistake that could bring down an empire. They'd treated a parameter as linear when it was anything but. "You've got to be kidding me," Rachel whispered, half laughing, half annoyed. She grabbed a marker, erased the error, rewrote it as a sigmoid function, her hands as steady as they'd been back at MIT. The math snapped into place. Rachel stepped back, smiled to herself, and left, thinking no one would ever know. But Simon Walker had watched the whole thing. He was nobody's fool. If a janitor could fix what his million-dollar engineers couldn't, something was up. He waited till Rachel disappeared, then ran the new equation through the simulation. The results nearly knocked him over. Performance up 58.6%, error rates plummeting. Simon stared at the numbers, then the red scrawl on the board, a chill running through him. He realized he'd just witnessed something that would change Mercer Tech's fate, and his own view of who mattered. The next morning, rumors of the janitor miracle flew through Mercer Tech. At an emergency meeting, Simon broke tradition and called Rachel to sit beside him. The room bristled with skepticism, not least from Jason Hartley, who looked like he was chewing glass. Simon wasted no time. "This is Rachel Brooks," he announced. She found and fixed the flaw your team missed. Jason laughed it off. A janitor? You're joking, right? But Rachel faced him down, quietly, confidently. I was an AI student at MIT. Maybe the real problem isn't skill, but arrogance. Missing what's obvious because you think you're too smart to be wrong. She walked the room through her fix, using plain analogies. You don't fix a clogged sink by pouring more water in. You clear the blockage. And for the first time, people listened. Simon backed her, turning Jason's pride to dust. But that one put a target on Rachel's back. Jason, wounded and furious, called his crew together, plotting to freeze her out. No support, no credit, nothing but cold shoulders and subtle sabotage. Rachel felt the change instantly. Friends turning distant, doors closed, emails ignored. She soldiered on for Sophia, but the isolation grew heavier by the day. Jason confronted her late one night, his words like poison. You don't belong here. Go back to your cart. Rachel held her ground, but in private, the pressure threatened to break her. At her lowest, clutching a photo of Sophia, Rachel knew she couldn't let this destroy her daughter's future. She pinned her resignation and left before sunrise. Simon was stunned. Without Rachel, the project tanked. Jason's team floundered, the old problems resurfaced, and Mercer Tech's future looked grim. That's when Simon broke all his rules. He tracked Rachel down, not as a boss, but as someone who finally saw her worth beyond the math. In her tiny apartment, with Sophia watching warily, Simon pleaded for her to come back, not just to save a project, but to help change the culture of Mercer Tech itself. Rachel hesitated, her scars deep, but Sophia's quiet strength and Simon's newfound humility swayed her. You're right, she told them both. I never give up. Not for myself, not for my daughter. She returned to Mercer Tech, and at the next investment conference, faced hundreds of skeptical eyes. Instead of boasting credentials, she spoke simply. I'm not an expert with fancy titles. I'm just the woman who cleaned offices at night, who refused to give up on herself or her kid. Her honesty won the room. Even as Jason hurled one last challenge, demanding she guarantee her fix would scale, Rachel met him head-on. The real risk, she said, isn't my math failing. It's that pride and prejudice will blind us to opportunity. The room erupted in applause. Jason, beaten and pale, realized he'd lost everything that really mattered. The next all hands. Simon promoted Rachel publicly and forced Jason to apologize, not just for the project, but for his disrespect and sabotage. Rachel accepted, not out of triumph, but because she knew real healing takes more than public shaming. Simon vowed Mercer Tech would never again measure worth by degrees or status, but by heart, grit, and the courage to stand up for what's right. That evening, Rachel returned home to find Simon and Sophia sharing laughter over a puzzle. Simon took Rachel's hand, told her she'd changed not just the company, but his life. Then, to everyone's shock, including his own, he proposed. Rachel said yes, Sophia cheered, and the three of them sat on the balcony, looking out at the city, feeling, for the first time, like a real family. Meanwhile, in some dark office, Jason sat alone, a lesson in pride and downfall. But even he knew the world had changed. Prejudice and power games could only hold back truth and talent for so long. So let me ask you, if you were Rachel, would you have the courage to step up and change everything, even when the world tried to keep you down? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about what real worth means in a world obsessed with status. If Rachel's story moved you, hit like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in the fight for justice, dignity, and hope.